Okay, so you guys really threw us a curveball this time.
Yeah.
You sent in these excerpts from David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me.
Intense. Right.
Super intense. And our mission is to kind of go deep on this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Take those excerpts and pull out like the absolute key insights.
Yeah, the things that you really got to know.
Exactly. So you can understand all the core ideas.
Yeah.
Without getting completely overwhelmed by all the detail.
Totally. And I think with Goggins, that's especially important because
Yeah.
his story is so packed with hardship and challenges.
Right. And today we're really focusing on the origins of his mindset,
Mm-hmm.
looking at how all his early experiences kind of shaped his whole philosophy
Yeah.
on self-improvement and resilience.
Because I think what's so fascinating when you go back to those early chapters, you see the foundation being laid.
Right.
You know, you get this raw glimpse of his childhood.
Yeah.
It was a challenging childhood, to say the least.
Right.
Marked by some serious trauma. You see the undeniable impact of racism. You see his academic struggles.
Right.
And then you start to see those first little steps
Okay.
towards the incredible mental and physical toughness that he's now so well known for.
Yeah.
It's like seeing those first sparks that eventually ignite this wildfire.
Okay, so let's dive into that.
Let's do it.
He starts by calling his childhood home in Williamsville hell in a beautiful neighborhood.
I know, right? Just grabs you.
It's so powerful, that contrast.
Yeah,
When you read that, what stood out to you about the reality behind that picture?
Well, I think the power of that opening line, hell in a beautiful neighborhood,
Yeah.
it really sets the stage for everything you're about to read.
It does.
It makes you question your assumptions, right?
Right.
Here you have this seemingly idyllic American suburb.
Yeah. Paradise Road.
Yeah, Paradise Road, exactly. But behind closed doors,
Yeah.
on this corner lot, a completely different and much darker reality was playing out.
Yeah.
It just highlights how appearances can be so incredibly deceptive.
Yeah.
And hardship, it's not always visible from the outside.
And a big part of those early years was Skateland.
The family business.
Yeah, the family business.
Right.
And he paints this very vivid picture of this place.
Oh, yeah.
Loud music constantly, Rick James, Funkadelic, Run DMC. And he's this little kid needing a step stool just to rent out the skates.
I know, it's such a great image.
How did that whole environment contribute to who he became?
Skateland wasn't just their livelihood, it was the epicenter of their lives.
Yeah.
It threw young Goggins into this really stimulating and maybe overwhelming environment.
Right.
You can almost picture him, this small kid needing help to do his job.
Yeah.
His mother, the sole cashier, is a key figure here.
Right.
But what really stands out is the control his father, Trinus, wielded over all the money.
Yeah, over every dime.
Every dime, yeah. And that financial chokehold really underscores a huge power imbalance
Right.
within the family structure. And that undoubtedly had a profound effect on everyone.
And that financial control, he really emphasizes that his mother never earned a dime.
Right?
Zero financial independence.
Zero.
And he portrays his father as this figure obsessed with money, prone to these just violent outbursts of rage.
Yeah, just this constant tension hanging over everything.
And that seems crucial.
Yeah, absolutely.
That control you mentioned escalated to physical violence.
It did.
And this detail about a loaded gun under his sleeping cushion at age 6,
Oh my gosh.
next to $10,000 in cash.
I know that detail stopped me cold when I read it.
It's chilling.
It's really chilling.
What does that tell you about that environment?
I think it speaks volumes about the instability and the very real danger that permeated his childhood.
Right.
I mean, the presence of a loaded firearm where a child sleeps.
Yeah.
It's just a stark indicator of how unpredictable and volatile his father's behavior was.
Right.
And the $10,000 in cash.
Yeah, what's that about?
Right. It adds this layer of mystery.
Yeah.
Almost suggesting a hidden, maybe even illicit aspect to their lives. And you have to imagine the constant underlying anxiety a child would experience in that kind of environment.
Yeah, just never knowing
Right, exactly.
what's going to happen.
Never knowing.
He also recounts this incident where his father beat his mother so severely that the police were called,
I remember that.
but they dismissed it as necessary domestic discipline.
It's chilling, isn't it?
It's chilling, and it's a reflection of, I think, the societal norms or lack thereof
Yeah,
around domestic violence at that time.
absolutely. It highlights a really painful truth about that era.
Yeah.
The systemic failure to protect victims of domestic violence.
Yeah.
The police, who are supposed to be the arbiters of safety and justice,
Right.
dismissing such blatant abuse as necessary.
Yeah.
Just underscores the incredible vulnerability and isolation his mother must have felt.
Right. And for a young boy like Goggins to witness that
Yeah.
and see the authorities essentially condoning it,
Right.
that would be deeply scarring,
Oh, absolutely.
shaping his understanding of justice and power.
Yeah. And you can almost see how that might later fuel his own drive for personal power and control over his own life.
And eventually, his mother finds the strength to leave.
She does.
He describes their escape.
Yeah.
The broken down car, the help from Betty, and ending up in a Holiday Inn conference room in Erie, Pennsylvania.
It's like a moment of desperation and a glimmer of hope all at the same time.
What resonated with you about that part of the story?
I think that escape feels like a true turning point in their lives.
Okay.
The image of that broken down car, it just perfectly symbolizes their precarious situation, the uncertainty of their future.
Right.
And then Betty's intervention becomes this crucial act of kindness, a lifeline thrown to them in their moment of need. And even the setting of a Holiday Inn conference room, this sterile, impersonal space becomes a sanctuary compared to the danger they'd left behind.
Right.
You know, it's the beginning of a new chapter, albeit one filled with its own challenges.
And those challenges were significant. He talks about the financial struggles.
Right.
Literally dumping out jars of change to pay bills.
Yeah.
But he also notes his mother's overwhelming relief.
I know.
Even though it came with the pain of missing his younger brother.
Right, Trinus Jr.
Yeah, who stayed with her father.
Right.
That's a really complex emotional landscape.
It really is. It highlights those incredibly difficult choices that people in abusive situations are forced to make.
Right.
While there was undoubtedly a huge sense of relief and freedom for his mother, there was also this immense grief and pain of leaving one of her children behind. Her relief, coupled with that profound loss, speaks volumes about the severity of what they endured and the agonizing trade-offs involved in seeking safety. I mean, you can just imagine the internal conflict she must have faced.
Shifting to his schooling. He had a particularly negative experience with a teacher, Mrs. D.
Right, in Indiana.
Which stands in stark contrast to the support he found in Sister Catherine.
Yeah, totally different approaches.
How do you think those two figures impacted his development?
Well, I think Miss D's approach, with all the yelling and lack of empathy, basically turned what should have been a safe learning environment into another source of stress for Goggins, who was already carrying so much trauma. He describes school, which had once been a refuge, becoming a torture chamber.
Wow.
And then you have Sister Catherine, who represents the complete opposite. Understanding patience, a belief in his potential, despite his struggles. This stark contrast likely illuminated for him the profound impact that both negative and positive influences can have on a person's life. And the importance of finding even just one person who believes in you. It probably also shaped his later understanding of leadership and the kind of person he wanted to be.
This brings us to a really central idea in Goggins' philosophy. Documenting your bad hand and your excuses as fuel for success. Even using hashtags like #badhand and #can'thurtme.
It's powerful stuff.
When you consider all those difficult early experiences we've been talking about, how do you see this concept taking root?
What's so powerful about this idea is his complete reinterpretation of adversity. Instead of letting those difficult early experiences define him as a victim, he actively encourages this practice of confronting and documenting those hardships. The bad hand isn't something to be ashamed of or to use as a crutch. It becomes the raw material, the fuel that can propel you forward. Those hashtags, in a way, are a declaration. An acknowledgement of the challenges, a way to own them. And the first step towards overcoming them.
It's about turning pain into power.
Exactly.
The narrative then takes another difficult turn with the introduction of Wilmuth Irving, who seemed to offer his mother a fresh start.
A new beginning.
Only for that hope to be shattered by Wilmuth's sudden and violent death.
That's tragic.
After everything she had already been through.
I know.
This must have been another devastating blow.
Oh, absolutely. It was a cruel and devastating setback. You can almost feel the weight of that question Goggins poses. Would God ever give her a damn break? It just deepened that sense of instability and loss that had already defined so much of their lives. It's hard to imagine the resilience it took for her to keep going.
And adding to the complexity of that loss, Wilmuth's death revealed this whole secret street life.
Right, a side of him she had no idea about.
Yeah, that must have introduced a whole new layer of betrayal.
Oh, absolutely.
And further complicated her grieving process.
Yeah, the revelation of Wilmoth's hidden life.
Yeah.
It shattered any illusions of him being their savior.
Right.
And it brought with it a whole host of unanswered questions
Right.
and this deep sense of betrayal.
Right.
It's one thing to grieve the loss of someone you love.
Yeah.
But it's another to grapple with the realization that you didn't truly know them. This undoubtedly made an already unbearable situation even more emotionally taxing for his mother.
And following this period, Goggins transitions to Cathedral High School.
Okay.
And then North Central High School.
Right.
Where he faced significant academic struggles.
Yeah.
And social insecurities.
Mm.
He even admits to cheating at Cathedral.
He does.
How do you think those experiences shaped his developing sense of self-worth?
Well, the move to Cathedral, to this private school environment,
Yeah.
and his immediate resort to cheating,
Yeah.
it really underscores his deep-seated academic insecurities.
Okay.
Even his success on the basketball team felt hollow to him because it was built on this foundation of dishonesty.
Right.
Then the shift to North Central, a large public school in a predominantly black neighborhood, presented a whole new set of challenges.
Right.
Despite trying to project this image of confidence,
Yeah.
he felt like an outsider.
Right.
And the different basketball culture where his attempts at trash talking completely backfired,
Yeah.
it further eroded his already fragile self-esteem.
Right.
He was constantly navigating these environments where he felt inadequate in different ways.
He also recounts a disturbing racist encounter.
Right. In Brazil, Indiana.
Yeah, where teenagers in a truck threatened him and his brother with a pistol.
Just awful.
This just underscores that constant presence of racial prejudice.
Yeah.
And the very real dangers he faced.
It's a stark reminder of the overt racism that Goggins and his brother had to endure.
Right.
The casualness with which these teenagers threatened them with violence simply because of the color of their skin.
Yeah.
It would have been deeply traumatic and impactful.
It's another layer of adversity.
Absolutely.
That contributed to that complex tapestry of challenges he faced.
Right.
It's during his time in high school that he has this crucial realization.
Okay.
He had been gaming himself through cheating and his avoidance of his poor reading ability.
Right.
This seems like a really pivotal moment of self-awareness.
It is.
Where he starts to see his own role in his struggle.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a watershed moment.
Okay.
Where he finally confronts the fact that his attempts to take shortcuts and deceive the system were ultimately self-sabotage.
Yeah.
He starts to recognize the direct consequences of his lack of effort.
Right.
And how he had been actively hindering his own growth and learning.
Right.
It's the beginning of taking responsibility for his own shortcomings.
Okay.
You might even say it's the very early stirrings of that accountability mindset that he later develops.
And that realization seems to coincide with a period of really hitting rock bottom.
Yeah.
Including a week and a half of homelessness.
Right after an argument with his mother.
Yeah, that must have been a brutal wake-up call.
Oh, absolutely.
Forcing him to confront the consequences of his choices.
Experiencing homelessness, even for a short period, likely stripped away any remaining illusions he might have had.
Right.
It forced him to face the stark reality of his situation. The lack of direction in his life and the very real consequences of his actions.
Yeah.
It was a moment where the safety net was gone.
Right.
And he was forced to confront his own vulnerability and that urgent need for change.
And it's in the shower, during what he calls a solo intervention.
I love that.
That this crucial tool, the accountability mirror, is born.
It's such a powerful image.
Yeah, it becomes so central to his philosophy.
It really does.
Of self-confrontation and taking responsibility. Can you talk about the significance of that moment?
Sure.
And what that accountability mirror represents for him?
That shower scene is incredibly powerful because it's this moment of absolute raw honesty with himself.
Right.
He looks in the mirror and confronts his failures,
Yeah.
the excuses he's been making, and the fundamental truth that no one else is going to come along and fix his life for him.
Yeah.
The accountability mirror becomes a physical representation of this intense self-confrontation.
Right.
It's a place where he forces himself to look at his flaws, his truths, and his responsibilities without flinching or making excuses.
Okay.
Psychologically, this act of self-monitoring is very effective for behavior change.
Okay.
By constantly facing his reality in the mirror,
Yeah.
he begins to truly own his life and his problems.
He credits this practice, this looking in the accountability mirror, with helping him finally improve his grades and prepare for the Air Force.
Yeah.
It sounds like a fundamental shift in his entire approach to life.
It is. It's a complete transformation by consistently forcing himself to face those hard truths.
Yeah.
Reflected back at him in the mirror.
Right.
He was able to break free from that cycle of self-deception and take concrete, actionable steps towards his goals.
Yeah.
The accountability mirror provided this constant visual reminder of what needed to be done and held him relentlessly accountable.
For his actions.
For his actions, yeah, or inaction, I guess you could say.
Right. And then following this, he makes a very deliberate choice to brainwash himself into craving discomfort.
Yeah, classic Goggins.
And he uses that accountability mirror as a tool to reinforce this new mindset.
Yeah.
This seems like the real genesis of his well-known philosophy.
It does.
Of embracing hardship as a path to growth.
This is where you see the intentional cultivation of that mindset.
Okay.
He recognized that seeking comfort had become a form of self-sabotage, leading to complacency and stagnation. By deliberately seeking out uncomfortable experiences.
Yeah, running in terrible weather, pushing his physical limits.
Exactly. And then holding himself accountable for sticking to that commitment in the mirror.
Right there in the mirror.
Yeah. He began to build this incredible mental toughness and resilience.
Yeah.
He was actively rewiring his brain to associate discomfort with progress.
He also describes this really intense study method he adopted for the ALIS VAB.
I know, right?
Literally writing out and memorizing entire textbooks. Developing what he calls an obsession for learning.
Yeah. It's a complete 180 from his earlier academic apathy.
Right. This is a totally different person.
It's a remarkable transformation.
Yeah.
His previous approach to learning, characterized by avoidance and cheating, is completely replaced by this relentless pursuit of knowledge.
Yeah.
The act of physically transcribing and memorizing textbooks demonstrates a level of dedication and discipline that was unimaginable for him before.
And he mentions that living with purpose during his senior year actually helped him to dissipate some of his resentment towards racists by considering their own potential insecurities.
Right.
That's a really profound and mature shift in perspective.
It is. It shows a huge leap in his emotional intelligence.
Okay.
Instead of being consumed by anger and resentment.
Yeah.
He begins to develop this more nuanced understanding of human behavior by considering those potential underlying reasons for others' negativity, their own insecurities. He's able to detach emotionally and redirect his energy towards his own goals rather than being consumed by bitterness.
And that leads to challenge #2.
Yeah.
Where he talks about confronting yourself eyeball to eyeball.
In the mirror.
In the mirror.
Right.
And using Post-it notes.
Yeah, I love the Post-it notes.
To list your insecurities, your dreams, your goals. And he emphasizes this idea of being unkind with yourself for improvement.
It's tough love taken to a whole new level.
How do you interpret that challenge?
I think he's taking those intensely personal experiences and translating them into a practical tool that anyone can use.
Right.
The act of writing down those insecurities and aspirations and physically placing them on the mirror makes the internal external. You're forcing a constant, unavoidable confrontation.
With yourself.
With yourself, exactly.
And that emphasis on being unkind with yourself.
It's not about self-hatred.
Right.
It's about brutal honesty.
Okay.
And a refusal to make excuses.
Yeah.
It's recognizing that true growth often requires pushing past those comfortable illusions.
Yeah.
And confronting uncomfortable truths.
And finally, these early excerpts give us a glimpse into some of his later challenges.
Right.
And the continued development of his mindset. We hear about his weight gain while working pest control.
Yeah.
His initial struggles with swimming.
Right.
And then his eventual success in that grueling pararescue training, highlighting this concept of the calloused mind.
It's a powerful idea.
What do you make of that?
I think those snippets provide a broader context for his journey.
Okay.
The weight gain illustrates that the path to self-improvement isn't always linear.
Right.
There are setbacks and the need for constant vigilance.
Yeah.
His early difficulties with swimming.
Yeah, even something as basic as Boy Scouts.
Right, exactly.
Stand in such stark contrast to his later determination.
To master it.
Yeah, to master it for pararescue, even resorting to swimming for dummies.
Right.
And his eventual triumph in the incredibly demanding underwater training.
Yeah.
Overcoming his fears, along with his success in not tying after a second hell week
Yeah,
really exemplifies the calloused mind.
it does.
This idea that through repeated exposure to and overcoming hardship,
Yeah.
your mind, like a muscle, becomes tougher, more resilient.
Less susceptible to pain and fear.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into these early chapters,
Okay.
what are the key takeaways that really stand out to you?
Regarding the origins of Goggins' powerful mindset,
Yeah.
for me, it's the undeniable impact of his early life trauma.
Yeah.
That incredibly pivotal journey towards self-awareness that was sparked by hitting rock bottom.
Right.
The absolutely crucial role of the accountability mirror as a tool for radical self-responsibility.
Yeah.
And those initial deliberate efforts to cultivate both mental and physical toughness
Oh,
by actively seeking out and embracing discomfort.
Yeah.
You see all the essential ingredients of his philosophy taking shape in those formative years.
Even in those early challenging experiences, you see the foundational elements of what will become Goggins' core principles.
Absolutely.
That relentless self-examination, the refusal to be a victim of circumstance, and this proactive pursuit of challenges.
As the ultimate pathway to growth.
Your growth,
and
self-mastery.
It really makes you think.
It does.
And that brings us to our final thought for you.
Oh?
As you've listened to Goggins' early story, consider your own bad hand. Those challenges, those moments of adversity that have shaped your life.
Right.
Think about the times you've truly held yourself accountable.
Yeah.
Maybe even when it was uncomfortable.
Right.
How can you take those experiences,
Yeah.
not dwell on them as excuses, but use them as fuel for your own growth and resilience,
Right.
just as Goggins began to do?
Exactly.
And what uncomfortable truths about yourself might your own accountability mirror reveal?
Ooh, good question. If you were willing to look honestly, it's something to really consider.
For sure.
Until next time.
See ya.